a moonwalk so I can just ease myself back out into the right position here. So I'm Gene Burnett, and I'm here with another little Tai Chi tip, Tai Chi video for you. Started using my webcam and my Yeti mic to do this. Usually I do this for music, but it seems to be nice with Tai Chi. Got a little bigger practice space now in my room, and so I can do this, I think. And I seem to have licked some glitches that I had doing this, and I think we're going to be all right. So I wanted to talk today about some about training methods, principles, and fighting philosophy or use philosophy. I think it's important, whatever martial art you do, that you be aware of these things and know what they are, both in your art but also for you personally. What is your training method, and what is your what are the principles of your art, and what is your actual use philosophy or fighting philosophy? So now, I'm not an authority on this stuff. I'm going to share what mine are. Maybe you can share what yours are in the comments below. But mainly, I just think it's useful to do this, and I'm sharing my version of it. So when I think about Tai Chi, training methods first. The training methods that I like, or the way that I see Tai Chi, or the way that I use Tai Chi training methods. First of all, move slowly and carefully. Study the kinetic chain from your foot, through your leg, through the pelvis, through the spine, and out through the arms. Go slowly so you can study that. Focus on the power coming from your legs. So we're always, it's a training focus, is that we're never, just thinking about arranging ourselves in shapes, or at least I don't. I want to initiate from my legs to allow me to land in that place. Not so much just shape my body in that way. The care and the slowness and connecting to breath and really going through the motions of something before you put a lot of force into it is a training method that a lot of people use to learn all kinds of physical tasks. You'll even see, like, high jumpers will take 3 or 4 steps up to the bar, and then they'll go back and 3 or 4 steps. It's like they're running through the motions. It's even been shown that rather than stretching before a sports contest or event, it's often better to just go through a very light version of what you're going to do when you do the actual game or the actual contest. So you would hit easy tennis strokes if you're a tennis player, or you would just throw the ball easy and relaxed if you're a quarterback, or you'd swing the bat comfortably, or you'd run at a nice, comfortable jog around the bases. You're warming up the muscles to do the kind of thing that you're going to do. And Tai Chi, for me, is like a very slow motion version of doing that. So it's the training method is to go slowly and carefully and study with breath and attention, developing integrated movements as opposed to local kind of separated movements. You want to integrate it into your whole body. The philosophy, the principles of Tai Chi involve balance. So that while you're doing the movements, you're studying, or I'm studying, the balance of hard and soft, yin and yang, relaxation and firmness. As I've said in other videos, I'm studying what I call the no, or the yang, on this side of the movement, and the yes, or the yin, on that side of the movement. So if I'm going to, let's see, I'll do this like a mirror. If I'm going to do this kind of a motion here, in a sense, like it starts, if I had a rope on the ground and I made a loop, and the rope went through the loop went through the rope, the no is on this side of the loop. So if my loop is going that way, there's a no at this side. It's pushing down the rope, and the loop is going that way. There's a yes on that side. It's allowing the movement to go through. That's the yin part. So in a sense, I push my weight over to my leg. I'm going to do this on this side so it makes sense to me in the mirror of the screen here. Push that way. It's like as soon as that momentum gets here, there has to be a no. If there's a yes here, then when I push it, it's going to go yes, and I'm going to fall over. So I have to stop it. So when it stops and says no, then the waist says yes. Not the hips, the waist says yes, right? And then when the elbow stops here, it's like the elbow says no, but then the forearm says yes. And then the wrist says no and the hand says yes. So on this side of the movement, there's all this yes. But right behind it, which is easy to overlook, is all this no. Because if any of that was just all yes, I would go with it. So I want to preserve my structure and allow the momentum I'm generating to go through that structure, not carry it away. So I'm studying the balance of yes and no, the balance of tension and relaxation in the movements. That's the prime principle for me, unforced balance of yin and yang. I want to feel those in harmony and in balance with each other as much as possible. Now, all this stuff I'm talking about so far, these training methods and these principles, this is all temple work. This is not something you study in a fight. This is something you study in the temple. You don't study this in daily life as much. If you're studying it, it's in a temple head or a temple place, because you're simplifying things and you're studying just these things, like all temples do. So another really key principle or lens to look at the movements that I look through it is, are my joints well aligned? In other words, are the joints set up the way they're adapted to deal with gravity? So I don't want my shoulders up or my elbows out. I don't want my knees twisted especially. I don't want force vectors going off in the horizontal directions. I want them to go down into the ground. Are the movements rooted in the feet, powered by the legs, directed by the core, and then expressed through the hands? That kind of stuff. Those are like some real principles that I really focus on a lot. Also, that initiation always comes from below. I initiate from, my waist doesn't initiate, my leg initiates, then my waist. And my leg doesn't initiate without that foot and without that pressure there. So even relaxation initiates below. I don't relax here and then here and then here. I'm pulling it down through gravity, through my body. So sinking into my legs and drawing the relaxation down. So those are some principles that I really like to work with. And there's others, but those are like the core. Those are like the core things: efficient, smooth balance of yin and yang, unforced balance of kinetic chains, and same with dealing with force coming towards me. The same kind of work. The fighting philosophy of Tai Chi is not one that I actually subscribe to. There's a lot of talk about the soft overcoming the hard, and that you have to be soft when they're hard, and you have to be relaxed when they're tense, and you find this balance where they exhaust themselves and then you're able to do your thing. And I study that I study it as a training method and as a training principle, as a Tai Chi principle, but it's not my actual self-defense philosophy if I'm actually in a conflict. And the reason for that is the soft does, in my experience anyway, the soft does overcome the hard. And they always point to these examples of the rock and the stream, and the water wears down the rock. I mean, it's so soft. But it does it over centuries. when what you're dealing with is, wow, like to go soft against that, when you don't know it's coming, when you don't even know that you're in a fight, when it comes out of the blue, is a very, very high bar. It's damn near impossible. The idea that softness alone will do it will neutralize attacks and stuff, is nice in the temple, and believe me, I study it. And when I'm doing pushing hands, I'm not trying to muscle my partner to the ground with brute force. I'm trying to find a balance of yielding, and I love yielding to change. And as a metaphor for daily life, I love contacting change and letting it go through me in a way that doesn't off-balance me, and then finding a counter when I can, and all the yin-yang stuff. That's all beautiful. But when it comes to actual self-defense, that's not my philosophy. My philosophy is much more like the philosophy of Xingyi, a related art to Tai Chi. And the fighting philosophy of Xingyi, at least as I understand it, is that the second you're in a conflict with someone that's physical, the second that there is an opening of any kind, you flood that opening with everything you've got. And 90% of the time, it's right for the mainframe, the head of the other person. So my fighting philosophy is not to feel out the other guy, see what he's got, dance around, jump around, and if he grabs me, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and all these, and then, which is great in the dojo, and I study that stuff in the temple, and it's really fun. Take his balance, tip it here and do it there. Maybe that will come up in real life, but more often in real life, what I've seen anyway, I haven't been in fights, but I've seen a lot of fights, and I hit a lot of pads, and I've worked with some people that are pretty adept and pretty experienced with fighting. Things happen really, really fast. So when there's an opening, man, it's a window that opens up like this, and maybe like that. And if you're not on that opening, well, it closes and it's too late. So my idea with self-defense is that, like, think about penetrating palm, or like the splitting from the Xingyi. It's like as soon as there's an opening, like if punch is coming here, if I happen to get a hand against it, there's an opening right there. As soon as that opening is there, boom, 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 bam, boom. Follow that opening, fill it quick with shots to the mainframe, especially. Or the second they throw the punch, if you see it, if you're lucky enough to see it coming and you can feel it coming, step aside and strike before they can even get there. Never mind neutralizing, going soft, and then coming in and doing some smooth thing there. I'm not saying you should never mind that. I say never mind that. That to me is way too high a bar. I've just seen so many people, especially soft people who have never been in fights, deal with like raging oncoming force, and they're usually taken care of pretty quickly because they just don't operate at those speeds. They don't take pressure in that level of pressure. So the only way that I know something works, or that I even know anything at all, the only things that I truly know are things that I've put under pressure and they've turned out, they've withstood that pressure. Like I know that I can balance on one leg because I've stood on one leg. I know how long I can do it because I've done it till I can't do it anymore. So those are things I actually know, right? So if you know that something will work martially, but you've never subjected it to real pressure, you might be in for a rude lesson, I don't know. If you only practice with punches that you know are coming, you tell them when to hit, you tell them how hard to hit, you know we're not really going to hurt each other, and there it is. That's a lovely temple work practice. But in real life, they're not going to be nearly as predictable. You're not going to have the right terrain, you're not going to have the right lighting or shoes or stuff in your stomach, or you might be a little stoned or drunk, or you might be in a totally different mood, and you might know you're in a fight at this point when the punch is coming to you. You don't know any of that stuff. So I think, well, deal with that, and as soon as there's an opening, flood it with everything I have. Now, it's not a risk-free fighting philosophy. There's definitely risks to doing that, and there's definitely risks to doing neutralizing and thinking about controlling the other person's balance and all that internal art stuff. There's risks to doing these things. So I'm not saying mine is perfect, but that's just mine. So my training method is to move slowly and carefully first, to study movements with breath and feeling and balance, and try to remove obstacles, right? And I do that in my Tai Chi, I do that in other physical arts too. First slow, then gradually you can pick up speed, and then gradually you can put your weight into it, and then gradually you can put weight and snap and a little more whip action to it, or like a washing machine, kind of, going around the core. You can gradually put more force or energy into it, and because you studied it slow, that won't be so risky for you. Principles, I mentioned a bunch of them. All of them have to do with, or under that umbrella of yin and yang, hard and soft, substantial, yielding and firmness, in a kind of dynamic, ongoing, unforced conversation, if that isn't too woo-woo. Those are the principles, and the ones I mentioned are all under that umbrella. And then for philosophy, that's where I step out of the temple idea of yin and yang and harmony and balance and movement, and recognize that the fighting is sweaty, chaotic, crazy and dangerous and adrenalized, and nothing you want is likely to be the case in the environment. And so I think instead of that, I think brace myself, look for an opening, and fill it as quickly as possible with as much fast, hard force as I can for the noggin of the other person, because that's the quickest way to render them unable to harm me, and I can get out of there. Everybody I know on YouTube and everybody I know that really has done a decent amount of fighting in real world violence, it's part of their life, they all kind of counsel something pretty similar to this. It's not about fancy stuff. It's about quick and to the point. So that's my training method and my principles and my fighting method or application method is to like fill the opening, move quickly. I wonder what yours are. I think it's a good idea to know what your training method is. Like, how are you training? What are these things for? Also, it's good to know what your principles are in your art and in your own personal practice. And it's really good to know what your use application philosophy is. What are you going to do? And whatever you do, if you're thinking of it, holding up under pressure of everyday life or the pressure of, God forbid, some kind of a physical fight with somebody, then I suggest that you put pressure on it, and the more pressure you put on it, the better, up to a point. I mean, you don't want to put so much pressure on your system that your weaknesses break, but you don't want to put no pressure on it so your weaknesses don't show up. So keep putting pressure on what you're doing. Just standing on one leg is pressure. Doing a form with a certain kind of attention is pressure. You're pressure testing what you're doing, and if it comes to application and doing it with other things, hitting pads is pressure. Hitting mobile pads is pressure. Sparring a little bit with another person is pressure. Trying to punch harder and faster and more accurately, those things are all putting pressure on what you're doing. So those things are good if you think it's going to hold up in real life. I recommend putting your stuff under some pressure. So thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been useful. It was a bit more rambling than I wanted it to be, but I'm getting used to this format, and there it is. So if you like this kind of thing, subscribe to my channel or visit GeneBurnett.com for more info about me and all the stuff I do. Thanks for watching.